Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Kelly Augsperger, your guide, where we plan for care to live well. Today with me is Stevyn Guinnip, aka the girl named Stevyn. Stevyn is the founder and CEO of Wealth Advisor, a health and wellness advisory firm that serves the financial industry by providing wellness plans and support. Stevyn believes health is a form of wealth and that it should be treated like any other retirement asset. Stevyn, thanks so much for being with me today.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. So happy to be here.
Stevyn, let's jump right in. I'm so excited to talk to you today about health and wealth and how the two really fit together. So I know that you educate on health and aging risks and how they impact family and financial planning. And I educate on the consequences associated with health problems and aging that many people often face, and they need to plan ahead. So I'd love to talk to you today about planning now for good health and what people can do. So can we focus on the before the health event today?
Absolutely. And I love that you're doing that because a lot of people kind of use their, they think the consequences are their safety net when really they've got kind of two safety nets. One is the prevention side, and then the other one is just, what you do to make sure that they're covered when they need it. And everyone will need it at some point, but how can we extend that health span and shorten that sick span within our lifespan? And that's going to preserve our financial portfolio. It's going to preserve our quality of life. And we're just going to have more fun if we can do that. So like on the prevention side, what I teach is to always think about longevity and, like I said, health span. What is it that you want to be doing when you're older? Let's just say 88-year-old you. Imagine who that person is, what they're able to do, and then see if you can't work your way backwards from that. Starting with some things because a lot of people, when they say, oh, I need to get healthy, they do extreme things. Right. And extreme things aren't forever things. And so if they're wanting to do something like keto or CrossFit or something really extreme, it's like, well, can you imagine your 80-year-old self doing that? If not, what can you imagine yourself doing? A lot of it's walking, mobility, being able to get down and up off the floor, making sure they've got good sleep, that they've got enough nutrition, because as you age, your nutrition typically tends to take a nosedive, which then makes you not recover as quickly. So that's the mindset and the approach that I always take is we're not here for the 6-pack abs, the 1-rep maxes, right. All that really extreme. We're here for the long game, and how can we make that successful? So we want to start at that spot. And then anything else they want to add on top of those things is kind of like icing on the cake. And even when it does go away, maybe going to the gym and spending an hour at the gym every day, maybe that goes away at some point, but they still have enough foundation in their healthy habits that maintain good mobility and function and quality of life throughout a good portion of their retirement years.
Oh, that's so important. The longevity and being able to maintain that over a long period of time. Because you're right. I know the trend is, we see all these things like the keto and CrossFit and almost extreme activities that you might be able to do for a short amount of time. But really, are you able to do that for 20, 30 years? Probably not. So getting these things in order now, okay, what can I do to maintain my mobility and maybe even increase my mobility, flexibility, and strength and all these things to maintain good health over my entire lifespan, right? Not just a certain amount of time. Oh, it's so important. I love that you touched on that.
Well, yeah, I have clients right now who are in their 30s, and then I also have clients who are in their 70s. And as I see across those generations, across those decades, I see that people who are younger think that if they exercise harder, they're going to be healthier. And then when they get older, the people who are in those 60s, 70s, and 80s, they're really kind of looking back going, man, what I used to be able to do, I really wish I could still do that now. And so just as a quick tip for your listeners, can you get down on the floor and get back up off the floor without using any aids? a chair, your hand on your knee, touching the floor, any of that stuff, that's the quickest indicator to say, do I have the range of motion, which is flexibility, and the strength and the balance that I'm going to need when I'm older? And if you have it now, great, but protect it. Keep doing it. Keep going through those things and doing them. Or another longevity thing, if you're on the younger side and you're looking to preserve that health and prevent things in the future, is grip strength. How strong is your grip? And that's like opening jars, yes, lifting something up, but it's also directly correlated with the strength of your fascia and how your body is able to communicate to your nervous system to preserve muscle. And that's your muscle is kind of like your longevity reservoir. That's your savings account. And so you want to have as much of that as possible. And so for grip strength, picking up something heavy and holding on to it. Yesterday I just grabbed 2 25-pound dumbbells and I just kind of walked around for a few minutes, just hold on to them. But it could be hanging on a bar too. If you haven't hung on a monkey bar lately, go find a playground, see if you can hang, right? A beginner, someone who's not very equipped to do that, can maybe hang 10 seconds. Someone who's more equipped is maybe 30 seconds. And someone who's on the advanced and safe side is on the minute or something like that. So these are just some really simple things you can say, where am I? How am I doing on the prevention for longevity?
Yeah, those are so great. These are practical ways to improve or maintain that strength and that mobility and that agility. And this is something that I'm seeing a lot in my space, really helping people plan for long-term care and things that we consider when people go on claim if they have an insurance policy. Oftentimes it's because of mobility issues. Yeah. It's because they need help with transferring, toileting, bathing, dressing, eating, incontinence. And if you can really extend your health span, as you call it, right? Those years where you're healthy and you're not sick, then hopefully you can delay going on claim. Hopefully you can stay at home longer without as much assistance. So, these are such great points, Stevyn. I love it. And now for a brief message from our show's sponsor. The Steadfast Care Planning podcast is sponsored by the CLTC, Certified in Long-Term Care Training Program, which gives financial advisors tools to discuss extended care planning with their clients. Look for the CLTC designation when choosing an advisor. Anything else you want to elaborate there, even on the sick span, like what you see even as far as like averages across the country? Sure.
Yeah. When it comes to, and I'm sure you have stats on this too, but from my research, what we're seeing is somewhere around like 10 to 14 years of sick span in the United States. And that means significant medical intervention is required for just daily living, just to be. And that's with all the things you just listed. And what we're seeing is that people are going into needing care when a fall happens. Fall is like one of those triggers that domino effects into a negative direction. And when we talk about falling, why did the person fall? There's 2 reasons. One is either the bones gave out and cracked and they fell. The other one is that they don't have the mobility and the strength to be able to take steps without catching a lip on something, like a pebble or a door frame or something like that. And so being able to have balance activities that you can do that maintain, it's something called proprioception. And proprioception is your body's ability to know where it is in space and time and to send a quick signal directly to the muscles that need to change. So for example, if you have slow proprioception, your brain doesn't get the message that you're off balance until you've already fallen and you can't catch yourself. So the quicker that communication happens, the better. But as we age, it slows down. So we lose muscle, we lose range of motion, we lose our proprioception. So standing on one leg for as long as you can without falling over, like touching the floor, touching a chair or whatever, that's an indicator also. If you can do 60 seconds on each leg, you're doing okay. And so that's part of that prevention thing is how can you not fall so that you then don't get an injury and then have to, step into care too soon. Oh, those are such good tips. Yes. I mean, I know multiple people. I even have a neighbor who
has a history of falling. And we've talked about how can you prevent falling, right? What can you do to strengthen yourself, slow down? I think that's part of it too, maybe going a little too quickly sometimes, but even strengthening and doing some exercises so that you're preventing these falls, because you're right. I mean, we see people on claim for long-term care oftentimes because there was a fall. I mean, one fall really can change it all. And so we want to prevent that. We don't
Yes.
want you to have to need the physical therapy or just need help with those activities of daily living. If we can prevent it, then we want to do all we can now while we are healthy and younger and maintain that mobility as long as humanly possible. So, yeah.
Well, right. I mean, Kelly, do we want to live longer or do we want to live better longer? Like there's a difference.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Sure. I want to live long and die short. I don't want decades of lots of care needed. I mean, we all are going to need it at some point, but let's live as long as possible, as well as possible. And that's the health span side of things. So if we look at the stats, over the last 100 years, lifespan has increased from 56 years old average to 79 years old. But health span has not increased. And that is really where our biggest win can happen, is in that give yourself those deposits into your account that are going to help you stay healthier longer. And then the other side of that is getting rid of what I call traps and taxes. And traps are thoughts. They're like, well, I don't have time, or I'm too tired, or, I have to finish my plate because my mom told me I had to when I was a kid, just those thoughts that kind of keep you stuck. And then on the other side are the taxes, which are things that are eroding your current health that you have. And taxes could be, not getting enough sleep, having too much stress, eating too many, I call them ISOs, industrial seed oils. And industrial seed oils are things like when you go to a restaurant or you eat a bag of chips, it's the safflower oils, the vegetable oils, the canola oils. That stuff is really, really taxing and inflammatory on your system. Alcohol, too much sugar. There's lots of different taxes that we can protect our bodies a little better and keep the health that we currently have and not let it kind of dissolve as quickly as, what would send us into a sick span. So that's right. Those are kind of two things to think about.
I'm so glad you brought up diet, because I know that's an important part, right? I mean, you can exercise and do all these great strength training exercises and activities, but if you have a poor diet, that's got to play. Do you think the diet is even more important than even the exercise, or how do you
Absolutely. Yes. I have a hierarchy of wealth, and the hierarchy of wealth, WELL, wealth, wellness. But that hierarchy of wealth has a base that is all around awareness and curiosity. It's how you think about this stuff. So it's not about guilt. It's not about punishment. It's about, what am I doing and why am I doing it? And then what could I do better? And that's really the place we have to approach this stuff, or else it becomes negative and taxing on our cortisol and stress hormones. And we want to get dopamine hits, which make us feel good. So we do it more often. So that's the base. Yeah. The next level up is managing your recovery, your stress. And that's with your sleep and how you're dealing with perceived stresses throughout your day. And then those two are most important. Then you go up to nutrition on the third level. There's 4 levels. You go up to nutrition, and that's the building blocks. If you don't have the right building blocks, even if you exercise, you're not going to be able to repair and improve those systems. So it doesn't matter. It's almost more harmful than it is to not do it. And so that's why the nutrition has to be there, so your body can pull from that protein and from those fatty acids and all the things to actually build your body back up. Because as we age, over the age of 40, recovery is the name of the game, because we have cells that are producing, and they're duplicating themselves, but as they age, they duplicate with like a wrinkle or a fold or some weird anomaly. And if they stay that way, then they create disease over time. So what we want to make sure is that you've got the right nutrition. And if you don't know where to start, because nutrition is complex, right? It can be a little bit, this person says this person says that.
Like conflicting and overwhelming. Who do I listen to? What do I really eat? What do I not eat? Yes. Where do people start?
Yeah. Protein. Start with
Okay.
protein. Almost everyone that starts working with me, their protein is down in like 70 grams a day. We want it to be over 90 grams a day. So if you think about that, if you don't know what your grams are, what in the world that means, think about the palm of your hand. So the size of the palm of your hand, about an inch thick, is about 30 grams of protein. So that can be Greek yogurt. It can be, a piece of, lean meat of some sort, anything that's, got some protein power to it needs to happen at each meal that you eat. So let's say you had 3 meals a day. That's 30 grams at each one, about a handful, about a palm's size. And that's going to get you the minimum of what you need. And a lot of people are not there.
Right.
So I would start with that. And then the other thing, a lot of people don't realize that carbohydrates can wreak havoc on your body when they're consumed too much. And a lot of people, especially here in the United States, are on the teetering brink of prediabetes or diabetes. And that's a big, big deal here in the US. And so if you want to help with that, don't feel like you have to go keto or drop all your carbs out. Look at any packaged foods that you eat. Find the carbohydrates on them. Maybe it's like 20, and then go down and find the fiber. And if it's 1 and the carbohydrates are 20, you're doing a carb to fiber ratio of 20-1. Okay.
Sure,
So that's a really simple ratio.
Okay.
We want it to be 5-1.
Oh,
5-1. Yeah. So let's say it's 20 carbohydrates, but it's got 6 grams of fiber. Yes.
That's
a
good.
good
That's
choice.
a win. Yeah.
That's a win. So just a really simple way. Check your labels, do a quick, divide the fiber into the carbs. And if it's around 5-1, you're doing okay.
Okay. What if you do that, but then you add a piece of protein with it too? Like if you're way off in your fiber carb, can you kind of make up for it by adding some protein in there?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
And if you eat the protein first before you eat the carbohydrate, your body actually absorbs it at a slower rate, the carbohydrates, and it doesn't hit your blood sugar as quickly. So there's 2 really important ways to change your blood sugar and get you off the track for diabetes. And that is to change how you eat. So your carb to fiber ratio, but eat any carbohydrates like a piece of bread, eat it with a fat or protein. Or both to make it even better. So some peanut butter is better on your bread than just the bread by itself.
Sure.
Or so if you were going to have an apple, eat your apple with some peanut butter or a piece of cheese or whatever, hard-boiled egg or something like that that's going to make the ratios, because I'm a proponent of balanced ratios. So balance, like same amount of fat, same amount of protein, same amount of carbs. Anytime you go extreme on any of those 3, you get into an extreme diet, a fad diet.
Right.
And the balance seems to be the one that most people can continue for the longevity of their lives. And so, yes, I love that. Eat at your meals, half your plate vegetables, a quarter of the plate is protein, and then the other quarter is a mixture of fat and carbohydrates, And when I say fats, I'm like the size of your thumb is a good fat serving. So a little handful of nuts or a pat of butter or some cheese. And then the rest of it can be carbohydrates, maybe like a handful of rice or quinoa or noodles or bread or whatever it is that you choose. And that's a pretty balanced plate.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for giving that picture to us, because I know as a kid growing up, we were taught the food pyramid, right? You've got the triangle, and I think like all the carbs are down below, and at the very top is what? Sugar, I think. And so is that how it goes? Yeah. But this is really flipping the script on that and saying, no, let's focus on high quality food and lots of vegetables, have some protein, have some fat, have some fruit, to have a really well-balanced diet, and doing that to maintain over, increase your health span is the ticket.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I would recommend a book called Glucose Revolution. And if anybody follows Instagram, she is on there as a glucose goddess. But this book is really helpful to understand the order that you eat your food in. And then I told you earlier, there are 2 ways to control blood sugar. The first one is food. The second one is movement. So let's just say, for example, my kids make me a pasta dinner for my birthday. I'm going to eat the pasta dinner, right?
Yeah,
like I'm just going to do it. It's my
Of
birthday.
course.
So then the best thing I can do then is go for a walk within 15 minutes of eating that meal. And that's going to cut the blood sugar spike that would normally have happened in half.
Okay.
So that you don't have that much insulin having to come into your system, because really diabetes is a problem of too much insulin that causes too much storage of fat and sugar. And then it causes your body to become insulin resistant. And so that little walk after you eat is so, so, so important, especially if you had some carbohydrates. So those are all prevention things that you can just do right now.
Love that. And I would imagine that's going to even help with energy, right? If you're balancing this, the timing of what you're eating, and then maybe you do have too many carbs and not enough protein, go on a walk, that's going to help with energy. Is that right? So that maybe you don't have those dips in like, oh, I'm so tired. Or even some people like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, people start to feel a little sluggish.
Yeah.
So maybe go for a quick walk.
Seriously, if you have lunch and you go for a 15-minute walk, you are protecting your afternoon. Like you're basically just ensuring that your afternoon isn't going to have a lull in energy and a craving for a candy bar. Like the cravings and the lulls in energy just mean that you've had a sugar dip that's gone too deep, and your body is now like, hey, we need some energy.
Right. Help me.
Yeah. And so when you take care of it that way and you don't go too high, then you're not on your blood sugar spike, then you won't go too low either. And it just averages out, and your evening, like 2-3 hours later, is going to be so much better. And there's a concept out there, Kelly, that's called metabolic flexibility. And so when people have cravings and they're like, man, I love sugar. It's always calling to me. I can't say no to the cookie, whatever. Right. Or if they have to eat every 2 or 3 hours, like 6 meals a day, those people, that's a signal that you are not very metabolically flexible. Your body doesn't know how to flip the switch to start burning a different fuel source to get you through for longer periods of time. And if that's happening to you, where you're like, I can't even imagine skipping a meal, I would be so hangry and shaky.
Right.
Then it's time to start focusing on that. So your body should be able to, like, if I'm traveling in the airport and I eat breakfast and there's no good opportunities for me to eat something good at the airport for a few hours, I should be able to consciously say I'm going to skip a meal and wait until I get a better opportunity to eat better. But if your body isn't physiologically able to do that, then you are at the disposal of whatever Cinnabon or Starbucks or whatever that might be there, right? So that's a clue if you get shaky or hangry that your metabolism is not able to switch into a fat burning mode. Just
interesting.
So be aware.
How can you improve that? Like, can you give us even a couple tips on how you can improve that if people do get hangry? Because I will tell you, my daughter gets super hangry, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we need to get her some food stat, right? We need to decrease these emotions and get her some good healthy food. So even like thinking of maybe kids, grandkids, or even yourself, how can people improve that? Yeah.
So there are 3, what we want to do, your body used to be able to do it, but then with things, it just kind of gets out of sync. It doesn't sync well with what it should be doing and how well it works. So we always want to nudge and cue the body to do what we want it to do or what it does best. It just forgot. And 3 ways to nudge or cue our bodies to become more metabolically flexible, which is basically, can it use sugar in your blood? Yes. Can it use stored sugar, which is the stuff that's in your muscles and your liver? It's called glycogen. And can it use fat as a fuel source when it needs to? Or if you want to lose weight, like that would be a reason to tap into fat too. So those 3 things are to have a feeding window and a fasting window. Cut your day in half. Half the day you're not eating, half the day you can eat. That can be your feeding window. And that teaches your body, this is when we eat and digest. This is when we repair and we burn off. We use our different fuel source. So it teaches your body to know the difference between those. That's number 1. Number 2 is when you get up first thing in the morning is to get your eyes on direct sunlight. Walk outside, look at the sky, find the sun, blink, be uncomfortable, get that sun and outdoors on your face, because it resets your clock. It resyncs your internal clock. So your body's like, oh, it's time for us to now do this exercise or activity. Before that happens, it's burning fat. After that happens, it's burning carbohydrates. So that's number 2. And then number 3 is all about meal timing. So it's called MLO. It's just an acronym I made up. Eat more, less often. So when you do eat, try to eat enough food. Most people eat breakfast that's like skimpy. It's maybe 200 calories. It's a cup of coffee with maybe a granola bar. It's not enough, and it sends your body into needing food again quickly. So eat carbs, fats, and proteins in every meal, and eat enough food. And when I say enough, I'm like 400, 500, 600 calories, like enough to give you enough food. And and then let your body go until the stomach empties, which is usually about 4 hours before you eat anything again. And then try to eat more, less often. So you're eating 2 or 3 bigger meals in the day in your feeding window after sinking your body to the sunlight. And that will cue your body to become more metabolically flexible.
Oh, I love these tips. I'm going to try these with my daughter, Stat. Yes, that's great, Stevyn. Thank you. Well, that's a great segue into just talking about longevity and what things we can do. Chronic disease, that's a part of a lot of people's life, right? If they're not proactively planning for good health, we see chronic disease. So maybe what is one important indicator or a couple important indicators for the risk of chronic disease?
Yeah, if I could boil it down to one metric, one thing that's like everyone can test and everyone can know immediately how they're doing, it's your waist to height ratio.
Okay.
I don't care about BMI or weight or certain blood numbers. Like that one number is like the Lord of the Rings. The one ring to rule them all is the waist measurement according to your height. So take your height in inches, divide that by take your waist, divide that by your height, and you're going to get a fraction. You're going to get like 0.5 or 0.4, and you're going to 0.6. I don't know what it's going to be, but you want that number below 0.5. Okay. So let's just say I'm 70 inches tall and my waist is 35 inches. So you take your waist and divide it by your height, you're going to get 0.5. Like that's right at that half. So basically it should be less than half of your height is what we're saying.
And if
it is, you're good. You're I don't want to say you're good, but you're doing okay. Look at other things next. Sure. But if it's over that, that's really the first thing I would focus on, just because the waist measurement, and we're talking specifically at the belly button level, not your pant size. So at the belly button level, because that indicates visceral fat. Visceral fat is stomach fat that is actually around the organs that causes dysfunction of those organs. And it's actually metabolically active fat, which means it's sending signals to your body to keep adding more fat to that. And so your body's sending out cravings and storing more fat, and it's not really where you want to be. So that's a really simple one. If that number is over 0.5 by any amount, or even at 0.5, consider that to be kind of a red flag that it's time to start looking at some changes in your lifestyle. Beyond that, I'll let your listeners go to something called Syndrome X or metabolic syndrome. There's actually 5 indicators, and you can read more about that at just a quick Google search. But it's basically your waist, and then it's your triglycerides. That's how much circulating fatty acids are in your blood. And then it's your cholesterol and your blood sugar. And there's one more that I can't remember right now. But those 5 things, if you have 3 or more of them, you actually do have metabolic disease. And that means that chronic disease is right around the corner, including cancers, heart attacks, diabetes, that type of thing.
Great advice, Stevyn. Any other final tips about how people can plan now to live well?
The further down the road that you get in your life stages, the more risk you accumulate just because of aging. That's just the way that it goes. So when you're younger, you have bigger margins and more risk tolerance. But as you get older, you really need to kind of like think of it like dialing in this an AM station on the radio. You want to really get that static out and fine tune what you're doing to lengthen that health span and keep reducing those risks, and so those things don't creep in. So if you go to the doctor and you notice that your fasting blood sugar is approaching 100, start looking at making some changes. Dial that in a little bit better. If you notice that your triglycerides are approaching the high end, a lot of times your doctor will say, you're in normal ranges. Good. See you in a year. But you have the responsibility to say, what was it last year and what is the trend? Because if the trend is moving toward those higher limits, you know that that's a trend you want to try to reverse. So take a little ownership there and see if you can't know more and take the steering wheel in your hands, essentially.
That's right. Because really, we are our best advocates, right? We could have the best doctors in the world. But ultimately, I mean, we know our habits, we know our lifestyle, we know what we're doing day in and day out. And so we need to be proactive and really take the steering wheel, like you said. Yeah.
Don't wait for the doctor to tell you there's a problem, right? I have someone that I talked to, and he's 350 pounds. He's 40 years old, 350 pounds. So his waist height ratio was way off, but all of his blood numbers came back normal. So his doctor said, you're healthy. See you next year. Well, that's not really, it's not real, right? So there were other things that should have been, that are definitely showing that there's a metabolic dysfunction going on and there's chronic disease around the corner. So that's why I'm just saying, use the doctor as your tool. Use your, practice getting up and down off the floor. That's a tool. It's just like looking in the mirror, and then see if you can take all that information and make a plan forward, which is really what I'm most an advocate for, is knowing where you are. Where do you want to go and what's your plan to get there? Treat it kind of like it's part of your financial portfolio, for your retirement, and have a plan. Try not to wing it or just see where the cards fall out, or, rely on your genetics to get you where you want to go. That's kind of a risky plan. Just make a plan and go in that direction.
Yeah, love it. Well, Stevyn, thank you so much for your time today. What is the best way for people to learn more about you and find you?
Oh, sure. So really fun thing to do is go on my website, growwealthy.com/quiz.
Okay.
And take the quiz. It takes 1 minute. It's 6 questions, and it'll give you an idea what you're out of 100, how well you're doing with your health on some of these key things that we've just talked about. Okay. And then you're welcome to reach out to me there. Follow me on LinkedIn too, because I try to put content out every single day.
You do a fabulous job. She does a fabulous job. Yes.
Thank you so much. And I'm always on there, so feel free to DM me on LinkedIn as well.
Okay. And you also have a new book coming out, right?
I do. Yes. I have been interviewing people about their experiences for the last year. And I have a launch date coming up in 2023 that hopefully we'll be able to make. And it's very exciting. I hope that it will help people treat their health as an asset and tell stories of people who've done well and what some of those challenges and roadblocks are, so that people can navigate their health better. So it's there when they need it, which is usually in those retirement years.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Stevyn, thanks so much, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay, thanks, Kelly.